Welcome to When Elderly Caregiving Upends Your Life, What's Next? It's a YouTube series based on our super popular webinars. Whether you're new to caregiving or deep in the journey, this is the place for you. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can catch the latest episodes when they drop. And like these videos and share with your friends. Thanks, and let's get started. Like many of you, during the COVID lockdown, it gave me a chance to reflect on my personal care journey for my father, explore my purpose, and plan for the future that I wanted after COVID went away. And in that reflection, what I came up with is my purpose. Now, what I do every single day is try to be of service to the elderly, their loved ones, and their caregivers. So I'm so excited to be here for this presentation. To do that, to fulfill my purpose, the things I focus on is trying to be that knowledgeable, trusted advisor on a common set of elderly caregiving topics. And we're going to talk about these during our discussion. Whenever I come to any of these topics, although I've worked with people in healthcare and in the healthcare space, I come to it from the family caregiver perspective. So the things you're living on a daily basis. Everything that's in this presentation and everything I do is based on research. COVID and other things gave me that opportunity to really learn a lot more about the topics and the experiences that I was going through. And lastly, I bring my experience in real estate, finance, healthcare, technology, and entrepreneurship to this discussion. So now I'm going to walk you through the key moments of my senior story. And the reason I picked out these segments because you'll see that they ultimately tie with what it means to be an elder caregiver. So what you have to know first and foremost is I've always been a daddy's girl. And I want you to notice the youth and vitality of my father in this picture. This picture is from my grandparents, the two in the back in the middle, last visit to Hawaii. One of the things I loved was my grandfather, who was in his 90s, would come to Hawaii and he'd spend his day on the bus traveling the island and talking to fellow riders. And I just love that level of independence, and it really inspired me. Unfortunately, on this trip, my grandmother fell and broke her hip. And that fall ushered in my grandfather to being a full-time caregiver for her. Unfortunately, when they returned home, my father was on his way to the post office one morning and a drunk driver went through an intersection and killed him instantly, leaving my grandmother at home with no one to care for her. That caused my parents to spring into action and fill the void. And hence, that was where I first became a member of the sandwich generation, this time as the kid. Later, jumping ahead in 2002, when pregnant with my son, I relied heavily on the book, What to Expect When Expecting. And my guess is there's probably quite a few people on this call. If you went through that pregnancy experience, you relied on that book too. And what I've done is I hearken back to the approach that she took there. Next, I'm sharing with you, this is Christmas 2010. It's my son and both of my parents, and you'll notice in the background, my mom was using a walker. Little did we know in 2002, although she had multiple chronic conditions, that she would pass away. And she passed away in July after visiting us for 4th of July. She went home. The doctors asked her to go to the hospital for observation, and it turned out that her organs started shutting down, and she passed away before we could drive from Dallas to San Antonio to say goodbye. And so after my mom passed away, you can see my dad there on the far right. He was living independently, and we allowed him to what is now called age in place, but stay in his home, and he needed very little support. But by 2015, caring for his 3,000 square foot home became a little much. And so my son and I went to San Antonio and we packed him up. and researched housing alternatives and moved him to Dallas. And there he lived in senior independent living, enjoyed that experience, traveled on his own, did a whole bunch of stuff. That is until he totaled his car, at which point in time we figured out it was probably time for him to stop driving, and we took away the keys. Of course, when you stop driving, that's a key milestone because now you have to become more reliant on family. So one of the things we thought was helpful was at least he was in Dallas at that point, and we had a network of people that could help with his care. This picture here is by 2016, we celebrated my father's 90th birthday, and you can see barely in this picture, but he can no longer walk on his own and relied upon a cane. From there, he ended up by later in 2017, he ended up about a year later, he used a walker. And by late 2017, in order to get anywhere, he needed a wheelchair. Ultimately, by 2018, he could no longer live on his own, and we moved him into my house where I took care of him 24/7 with some outside help. He passed away peacefully at night in 2019, and from there I now took on the responsibilities of planning the funeral as well as supporting my son through the grief process. So that's kind of a quick summary of my elderly caregiving experience. But one of the things I really want you all to take away from this conversation is throughout the experience, I always felt in dealing with medical professionals or other people in the healthcare industry that I was like Oliver Twist asking, please, sir, I want some more information. And it never seemed that I had enough time to research it on the internet or enough time and appointments to ask. So one of the things I want you to leave with from this conversation is to understand that you are an expert in your loved one's caregiving. You are more knowledgeable than you think, and that the doctors and nurses don't know your loved one as well as you do because you're with them more often and for longer periods of time. So the information I'm going to share with you today will empower you to be a more effective advocate for your loved one. I'm going to share some tools and strategies so that you can achieve a greater sense of control and a little peace of mind, and also leads you to some resources for further investigation for your specific challenges. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and catch us in the next episode.